The following series contains opinions from paid professionals. The information provided in this video is general in nature and not advice. For free and confidential support, call 1800 858 858 or visit www.gamblinghelpline.org.au. Hello and welcome to another episode of Grace and Gator's Cup Countdown. There is so much to talk about on today's show. Gator, first and foremost, some big news in that over the weekend we saw the second shipment of internationals, including some right at the top of betting. It's exciting to be out at Werribee at this time of year, isn't it?
Yeah, it is that. And of course, Jan Bruegel, the headline horse, undefeated, fits the recent profile. We've discussed that on the show before, but his inexperience will be the fascinating aspect to his preparation into the big race. We know some extra jockey bookings now. So the news coming through that Ryan Moore will be aboard the Coolmore owned and trained Jan Bruegel, the favourite, who is undefeated and has some really key form references that we'll get to shortly through the Caulfield Cup this Saturday as well. We've got William Buick to ride Vauban and also Karen McAvoy aboard Absurd. Those two from the Willie Mullins camp. We know them from last year. It'll be fascinating to see how they go differently now this time around. There's been so much talk about, you know, the different lead up and the different pieces of work that they may be applying into the big race. Well, they had to change something, didn't they? Because it didn't work last year. I mean, Vauban's last China was awful. And Absurd ran it quite well, but he was soundly beaten. So it's no surprise that they're changing a few things up.
Well, let's take a look back at what happened last Saturday, and let's start with the Group 1 Might and Power Stakes. Is there anything out of this race that we need to be paying attention to, do you think, for the Melbourne Cup?
Yeah, well, I thought Coco Sun and Carla Paul ran okay, certainly without raving, and Coco Sun does have some upside, but I wouldn't think they'd be right at the top of the my thoughts. What about you? Yeah,
look, it's really interesting. We know Calipore probably has got a tick next to his name in terms of the distance. Coco Sun, a little bit unknown. She's a 4-year-old mare. A lot will be determined this Saturday in the Caulfield Cup with both horses backing up out of the Might and Power, which was a fast run race. It was a real stamina test. So it's going to be interesting to see how those two horses do back up into the Caulfield Cup. But Coco Sun is one I'm definitely keen to see. I think that she's still got plenty of upside. She was 3 weeks going into that and will be cherry ripe this Saturday. What do you think?
Well, I think she's got a hand up to be competitive. We'll know more on Saturday, as you say, through the Caulfield Cup. But bear in mind the race was dominated on pace and inside despite that fearsome speed as well. So whether or not you're a believer in the pattern or not, I think it's a factor.
What about the Herbert Power Stakes? Now, this was obviously a winner you're into, the Caulfield Cup, over the 2,400 metres. It was won by Herman Hess, but a couple of horses, including the Map, who is a horse that's definitely looking ahead to the first Tuesday in November. She's already got her spot through a golden ticket earlier in the year. So do you think she's, tracking the right way?
Yeah, she's profiling well. Again, an on-pace, inside-dominated race, despite the fast speed. Again, pattern, if you're a believer or not. But the Map was good. We know she'll stay. She was excellent in an Adelaide Cup over 3,200. She was only third up that day from memory as well. So she's on my radar to some extent.
Yeah, I was really pleasantly surprised to see her acquit herself in that way when obviously they've still got plenty of time to get her cherry ripe for a race that she's already secured herself a spot in.
Yeah, good call. So she's, there aren't too many locals respectfully putting their hand up. She's one that's sort of half is.
Well, off the back of last Saturday and looking ahead to a Caulfield Cup, let's check in with senior trader Tim Ryan for another market update.
G'day Grace, g'day Gator. Tab Melbourne Cup betting, just a little bit quieter this week. No big changes, and I'm reasonably confident we didn't see the Melbourne Cup winner race last Saturday. There has, however, been a firm for the favourite, Jan Bruegel. He's touchdown in Australia, and we've trimmed him up a touch. He's into $5 from $6. I do think, however, he's bottomed out at that quote, and I don't expect a lot of change before we go final field on Derby Day. The Mullins stablemates, they've also touched down in Australia. Vauban, an $8 chance. He'll be ridden by William Buick, and Absurd, a $15 chance to be ridden by Karen McAvoy. Point King splits them in the market. He's into $10 from $11 last week, and we've seen steady support for him. Caulfield Cup is always a great pointer to the Melbourne Cup winner. We saw it last year with Without a Fight doing the double, and two that I'm keeping an eye on this year are Land Legend and Warp Speed. Land Legend comes through a really strong form line there through the Metropolitan, and to my eye, he has improvement in him, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him run a great race in the Caulfield Cup and be a firmer for the Melbourne Cup. Whereas Warp Speed, I think you'll find the 1.5 miles too short but I'd be loving to see him hit the line, and he's another one that I think might firm after a big run there on Saturday. What about you guys? What do you think will be the firm after Saturday? I don't necessarily want the Caulfield Cup winner, but I want to know who you like to be the big firmer after Saturday.
Well, that's the great question, Tim. I mean, the big query for me into this Caulfield Cup is how many of these horses at the top of the betting, Grace, are question marks at the trip?
Yep.
Look, I think a horse like Warp Speed, to answer Tim's question, is probably one that's better suited at Flemington over 3,200 and perhaps a drier track. But the likes of Buckaroo, Elias, et al., Zardozi even, there's question marks on them over the 2 miles.
I definitely agree with that. I think you've hit the nail on the head there. So if we're looking at, who we might be able to back now in a Melbourne Cup market, because the price will be gone after the Caulfield Cup, I think there's only a couple that you can really zero in on. One of those being Land Legend, a horse that I'm already a big fan of, especially from barrier number 1. I think that he's going to get a suck run in behind, be finishing off strongly, flashing light to say, watch for me out to 3,200 metres. And then it's Warp Speed and also Sadati, because we just don't know that much about these horses yet.
Yep.
So, the likes of Elias, Buckaroo, big queries when it comes to the 3,200 metres. Look, a horse that I know you're keen on and is in your stable, Warmonger. He's now third up, and I suppose out of the Turnbull Stakes last start, there were a few horses that might not have been ready for that sort of a race-shaped second up. Yep. Warmonger probably fits the bill. So are you with him looking ahead to a Caulfield Cup and then to a Melbourne Cup still?
Look, I think he'll run well in the Caulfield Cup, and I think he looks like he'll stay. So he's one outside of that basket or a group of horses that I'm having question marks on. He looks a genuine stayer, doesn't he? So I think Flemington will suit him. So he's one I'm watching closely on Saturday.
So we know Land Legend is in my stable. I'm really excited about him. And it's just the fact that he's still doing so much wrong in his races. He gets a bit keen. He's still got a long way to go in terms of relaxing and actually getting to maximum efficiency in terms of his running transit. So, Chris Waller, master trainer, has had an absolutely outstanding spring so far. I think that we're going to see the best of him this Saturday and hopefully still over 3,200 metres here at Flemington.
Yeah, well, in order to run the trip, he is going to have to relax. But as you say, he's in the stable that are masterful with their equine athletes and how they train them up. Zardozi's the other one out of the Metrop who I think will run well in a Caulfield Cup, and whether they press on, we'll soon know.
So looking ahead to this Saturday, there's one race that's going to shape, from a Melbourne Cup perspective, the market and also the horses that are going there, and that's the Caulfield Cup. Outside of the horses that we've already spoken about, who are we really focusing in on in the Caulfield Cup?
Yeah, look, historically, it's the best guide to our greatest race, the Melbourne Cup, isn't it, the Caulfield Cup? So we get a line of sight on a number of them. I think the horses like Buckaroo and Elias fascinate me because I do have serious question marks on them at 3,200. I want to see them powering through the line. The Japanese horse Warp Speed, I think he's more proven and more likely to be strong at 3,200. I want to get a line of sight on him as well. So there's a few there that we need to keep a close eye on.
And I'm looking at a real wild card for the Melbourne Cup at this stage. The horse Valiant King, who for Chris Waller has been targeted to the Melbourne Cup this preparation. We saw him last spring for a previous trainer coming out of Europe in the Caulfield Cup, and he actually was pretty luckless over the concluding stages there, wasn't beaten far by Without a Fight. So he's now third up, tracking in the right direction, definitely watching what Valiant King does in the Caulfield Cup, but it's a race that we're going to need to be reviewing over and over again. So we hope you've enjoyed this week's edition of Grace and Gator's Cup Countdown. We'll catch you next week for another big episode.
You win some, you lose more. For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.